Title: My manager called me to a meeting with HR. Kira, after 15 years, we're restructuring your position, she announced smugly. Clean out your desk by Friday. I smiled politely and said, completely understand. They had no idea how fun Monday would be. The meeting that changed everything. 15 years. That's how long I had given to Dalton and Myers Financial. I started at the front desk, answering phones with a headset that constantly cut out, then worked my way through every department like a quiet storm. Every promotion, every system improvement, every late night. They all had my fingerprints on them. But on that Thursday afternoon, none of that mattered. Kira, said a voice from my doorway. Got a second? HR needs you. It was Melissa, my manager, technically, but only by title. She was younger, newer, and always acted like I was an outdated piece of office furniture she was too polite to throw out. She smiled, the corners of her lips sharp and cold. I followed her down the hall. I didn't know it yet, but the next 10 minutes would break everything I'd built. The HR room was sterile, neutral-toned walls, framed quotes about resilience, and a table too big for any real comfort. Kendra from HR sat at one end, papers already arranged in front of her, like she was about to pitch a timeshare. Melissa didn't even sit. She leaned against the wall, arms crossed, smug as ever. Kira, Kendra said, her tone robotic. We've appreciated your service, but due to internal restructuring, your role is being dissolved. Melissa chimed in, syrupy sweet. Clean out your desk by Friday. We'll make sure you get your severance package and COBRA info. I stared at them for a long moment. I could feel the blood pulsing in my ears, my jaw tightening, but I didn't flinch. I smiled. Completely understand. Melissa blinked, thrown off by my calm. Kendra blinked twice. Thank you both for your time, I said, standing. Melissa looked at me, her smirk faltering just slightly, and I walked out with my spine straight and my head held high. Back at my desk. The minute I sat down, my phone buzzed. A message from Jordan, one of the junior analysts I had trained from scratch. Heard what happened. WTF? I'm so sorry, Kira. Another buzz. They're already moving your files. Melissa's telling people you were unprepared for new demands. Total BS. So that was the narrative. They wanted to erase me before I was even gone. What they didn't know? I never left my legacy lying around for someone else to claim. I had backups. I had leverage. And I had one hell of a surprise planned for Monday. Quiet storm. Loud moves. I spent the rest of Thursday and all of Friday packing my desk, with a smile that unnerved people more than if I'd screamed. Jordan lingered near the break room, nervously watching me fill my cardboard box. You okay? He whispered. I'm fantastic, I said with a wink, because I was. They thought they had outplayed me. But Melissa forgot one thing. I built the engine that made this company run. She didn't just remove an employee. She ripped out the wiring that held everything together. The real story behind the smirk. Melissa joined the company 4 years ago, a fast-talking, MBA-toting climber with 0 people skills and a talent for taking credit. I trained her when she first joined. She shadowed me, studied my spreadsheets, mimicked my ideas, and then started subtly planting doubts in the higher-ups. She means well, she once said about me in a meeting, but Kira's a little behind on the latest tech. We might want someone more adaptive. I remember smiling when she said that, because what she didn't know was that I had built half the digital workflow system she now bragged about understanding. She was good at appearances, But I was good at systems, strategy, leverage, and secrets. What they forgot. I knew Melissa and the execs thought they were moving ahead with some flashy new direction, streamlining operations, reducing overhead. What they didn't realize was that I had access to every weakness they were trying to hide, every misreported invoice Melissa signed, every manipulated performance report, every vendor discount that mysteriously disappeared into someone's personal side project. Oh yes, I knew. And not just from my own files. I had friends in IT, in legal, in accounting. People who saw the writing on the wall when Melissa started rearranging the puzzle pieces for her promotion. They didn't like it, so they helped me document everything. Friday, 4:59 p.m. As the last of my personal items were packed, I looked around at the desk that once felt like home. I stood, adjusted my blazer, and walked past Melissa's office one last time. She glanced up, fake sympathy plastered on her face. "Take care, Kira," she said, with that smug twist in her voice. I smiled, meeting her gaze directly. "Oh, I will. And Monday, you take care too." Her smirk wavered for just a second. Then I turned and walked out the front doors. But I wasn't defeated. I was just getting started. Monday, 9:01 a.m. Melissa strolled into the office with a coffee in one hand and a smug glow that hadn't dimmed since Thursday. The kind of glow people wore when they thought they'd won. She didn't notice the tension in the air, or the envelope sitting on her desk, sealed, heavy, and unmarked. At exactly 9:01 a.m., she opened it. Inside was a single USB drive, and a note that simply read, "You should really double-check those Q3 vendor reconciliations, especially the ones billed to Blue Point Creative. Warmly, Kay." The first wave. I had sent 5 packages, 1 to Melissa, 1 to the Chief Operating Officer, 1 to Internal Audit, 1 to Kendra in HR, and 1, anonymously, to the Board of Directors. Each drive was encrypted. Inside, a carefully organized folder labeled "For Review." It contained financial records with Melissa's name linked to fake vendor payouts, screenshots of internal emails she thought were deleted audio clips, from voice memos she'd accidentally recorded on Zoom meetings, bragging about rebranding the department her way and squeezing out the fossils. And most damning of all, a copy of a falsified performance review she'd submitted under my name months ago, slandering me as resistant to change. I had the original review too, signed by her, with glowing remarks. They say revenge is best served cold. Mine came data encrypted, time-stamped, and HR compliant. Meanwhile, back at the office, the effect was immediate. By 10:15, Melissa was in a closed-door meeting with the head of compliance. By 11:30, a second meeting was held, with IT present. And by 2 o'clock, half the leadership team had received a calendar invite titled "Urgent Review of Financial Misconduct Allegations." Melissa was unraveling. Jordan texted me around 3. "She looks like she's about to cry. Kendra won't even look her in the eye." "What did you do?" I sent back. "Nothing illegal, just the truth, tied up in a bow." Far from over. I wasn't watching from a distance. I was sitting in a cafe downtown, laptop open, sipping chai, replying to consulting offers from people who had already heard what happened. Word travels fast when you expose rot at the top, and people love a story where the quiet one fights back. The empire cracks. Tuesday morning brought emails, not just from friends or co-workers, but from executives, from people who had never remembered my birthday, never spoken to me in the elevator. People who now greeted me with words like shocked, deeply concerned, let's connect. Would you be open to a conversation off the record? We're conducting an internal review. Your insight would be invaluable. Yes. The same executives who let Melissa bulldoze her way to the top now wanted my help cleaning up the mess. I replied to none of them. Not yet. The office meltdown. According to Jordan, who had now become my personal informant, Melissa spent most of Tuesday in her office with the door shut. She wasn't smiling anymore. A new team of auditors had arrived. HR was silent. No one said it out loud, but everyone knew something massive was happening. They're whispering in corners, Jordan texted me. She looks like she hasn't slept. Legal's in and out of her office. By Wednesday, her parking spot was empty. By Thursday, her nameplate was gone. Kendra. To Kendra from HR wasn't spared either, because let's not forget, she was complicit. She signed off on my termination. She rubber-stamped Melissa's lies. She ignored complaints filed by others, brushing them aside with corporate jargon. The USB I sent to the board had included a bonus file. Internal complaints buried under her supervision. Time-stamped, ignored, covered up. By Friday, Kendra was also on administrative leave, which, in corporate speak, meant we're just deciding what size of box to give you. The company statement Friday afternoon, a company-wide email hit inboxes. Effective immediately, Melissa Dorsey has stepped down from her position. Kendra Shaw is no longer with the company. We are committed to fostering transparency, fairness, and integrity moving forward. No apology. No mention of wrongful termination. Just a bland attempt to save face. It was perfect, because silence from them gave me a louder voice. And me. I wasn't just watching from the sidelines. I was preparing my next move. A well-respected competitor had reached out privately. They heard I was available and highly respected by everyone who matters. They offered me a 6-month consulting contract at double my previous salary. Full autonomy, creative freedom, and a team I could choose. I didn't even hesitate. The comeback they never saw coming. 2 weeks after I walked out of Dalton and Myers, I stepped into the sleek glass lobby of Ferris and Wells, the firm that snapped me up faster than you can say wrongful termination. But this time, I wasn't an employee. I was a consultant. I set my own hours. I chose which clients to take. And the onboarding team, they treated me like royalty. My office had floor-to-ceiling windows. They ordered my favorite green tea without asking. My name was already printed on branded folders. "You're kind of a legend," one of the junior analysts whispered on my second day. I smiled politely. But inside, I was soaring. Reputation echoes. The corporate world is smaller than people think. And word spreads fast when a woman who was fired on Thursday becomes the subject of industry admiration by Monday. I heard through the grapevine that Dalton and Myers had entered full damage control mode. Their PR team was scrambling. They issued vague statements about internal culture shifts and refocusing leadership strategy. Melissa's LinkedIn profile went dark. Kendra's was set to private. But the best part? I wasn't bitter. I didn't need to rant, or gossip, or burn bridges. I just kept rising. Then came the call. It was a blocked number. I wouldn't have answered. But curiosity got the better of me. "Hello?" A pause. Then a familiar voice. "Kira." "It's Melissa." I didn't say a word. Look, I know you probably hate me. I didn't expect it to end like this. Still, I said nothing. I was under pressure. I made bad calls. But you destroyed me. That's when I spoke. No, Melissa. You destroyed yourself. I just showed everyone the wreckage. She exhaled shakily. Can we fix this? Maybe work together again someday? I almost laughed. You fired me like I was nothing. I built that department while you chased credit. You tried to erase me. And I became unforgettable. Click. I never answered a call from that number again. Legacy rewritten. I didn't just land a new job. I built a brand. Resilient Strategies by Kira Linwood launched that spring. I gave workshops, mentored women entering toxic corporate environments, and started a podcast. Episode 1, The Day HR Tried to Break Me, and what I did next. Over 500,000 streams. Hundreds of messages from women who'd felt the same sting of betrayal, the same suffocating silence. And for the first time in years, I wasn't surviving anymore. I was thriving. The legacy letter. It had been nearly 6 months since I walked out of Dalton and Myers, with my head high and my hands empty. Now, my days were full. Client meetings, speaking events, podcasts, strategy calls. My calendar was booked solid. But this time, on my terms, I was no longer someone else's employee, no longer the woman behind the spreadsheets. I was the architect of my own future. The envelope had arrived on a Wednesday, a cream-colored envelope with no return address. Inside was a simple note card. No name, just a few words scribbled in neat cursive. I've watched your rise from afar. I didn't believe you'd actually do it, but you did. You turned the knife I handed you into a sword. I hope you know. I underestimated you, and I regret that. M. Melissa. It wasn't an apology, but it was close enough to one for someone who'd once thought herself untouchable. I placed the card on the edge of my desk, not as a trophy, but as a reminder of what happens when a woman everyone underestimates chooses herself instead. 1 year later, on the anniversary of my restructuring, I sat on a stage under soft lights at a women's leadership conference. A packed auditorium. Hundreds of eyes. Eager faces. I shared the whole story, not just the corporate takedown, but the heartbreak, the quiet evenings filled with doubt, the fear that maybe I'd never be anything more than a cautionary tale. And then, I said, when they told me to clean out my desk, I smiled and said, completely understand. Because I did. I understood that I was done shrinking. I understood that I was done asking for permission. And most importantly, I understood that when someone tries to erase you, your story becomes even more powerful. The room erupted in applause. The last move. Back home that evening, I made myself a cup of tea and pulled out an old file folder from my closet. Inside were documents I never needed to use. Legal records. Screenshots. More dirt than I'd ever exposed. I flipped through them one last time. Then calmly, I ran them through the shredder. Not because I forgave them, but because I no longer needed proof of who they were. I had already shown the world who I was. Epilogue. The welcome email. Later that night, I received an email from Dalton and Myers' new VP of Strategy. Hi, Kira. We're rebuilding from the inside out. Would you consider consulting with us on culture transformation? Your insight would be invaluable. I stared at the screen, then typed 2 words. Absolutely not. And I hit send, smiling the whole time. If this story struck a chord in your heart, if you've ever been hurt, betrayed, or underestimated, know this. You are not alone, and you are so much stronger than you think. Tap that subscribe button to join Veiled Revenge, where we share tales that heal, inspire, and remind you that even the deepest heartbreak can lead to the most beautiful new beginning. Share this with someone who needs a reminder that revenge isn't always about getting even. Sometimes it's just about getting better.